And welcome, everyone, to our AP Top 25 poll reaction here on Bleacher Report. I'm Andy Katz. You can obviously watch this here live as we're doing this. It'll be repurposed on Bleacher Report, segments on NCAA.com, and all our social content on March Madness MBB. One thing that happens after Super Bowl Sunday that is sort of annoying. I get it. You know, we're going to put out like, hey, we're the next big event. If you were, under a rock for the last 3 months, here's college basketball. I don't get that at all because there are plenty of fans that don't really care about the NFL. Maybe they just care about college football. Maybe they only like the NBA or the NHL, or maybe they're really into men's college basketball or women's college basketball. I think it sort of dumbs things down that we somehow think that people can only have blinders on for one particular sport until it ends. And then, oh, look what's over here. Shiny new little toy. It's men's college basketball, women's college basketball. You probably, if you care about this sport, have been paying attention over the last couple months. Look, for those that just fill out a bracket, when we get to March, love all those fans. That's great. But that's not who is going to be paying attention in February either. So key thing is it's sort of a crutch to do that, to assume that people aren't paying attention. They're not even looking at the sport, and suddenly on February 10th, they're like, oh, there's something else going on. So never really a fan of that, that everyone just assumes that once the NFL ends, that we suddenly have all this space in our brain to pay attention to something else. I think we can handle a lot of things at the same time. All right, let us get to the AP Top 25 poll. I can already tell you, I'm going to be on a soapbox here, see some issues that are going to drive me a little frustrated here. First off, there's not a new number one. All right. Auburn, who I do think is one of the best teams in the country, and will likely be a number one seed. They lost at home to Florida. Florida beat Auburn without one of their best players, Elijah Martin. Did not play in the game. So to me, if you want to keep that number one ranking, number one, yeah, you can keep it if maybe everyone lost in your neighborhood, that top 4 or 5. That didn't happen. Alabama won at Arkansas. Number two, maybe you lost on the road. That didn't happen. Auburn lost at home. Number three, who'd they lose to? Well, they lost to a top 5 or 6 team. In this case, it was Florida. Oh, but Florida didn't have one of their best players. So all those things happen. How can Auburn keep its number one ranking? If we're trying to preserve the integrity of the AP Top 25 poll, not that there's something illicit going on, but I mean, just if people want to believe in this for whatever reason, then you've got to treat it with some seriousness if you're going to actually vote. And to keep Auburn number one by losing at home to a team that was number 2, by the way. They weren't number 2, and they don't have their best player. That doesn't make sense to me. So I had Alabama number 1. You're going to see momentarily what I did. Alabama won at Arkansas. So they got them at 2. Florida 3, they just beat Auburn without Elijah Martin. Earlier in the week, Walter Clayton didn't play against Vanderbilt. They won that game. You can make a case for Florida. Duke loses late at Clemson. I'm okay with them at 4. Tennessee had a great week, beat Missouri, and then had a real strong win where they knocked off hold on here, sorry. Let's make sure I get this. Yeah. So Oklahoma, on the road in Norman. Handled them. Great week for Tennessee. Houston played well after losing that Texas Tech game the previous week. Purdue at 7. Looking like maybe the best team in the Big Ten right now. Had a convincing win over USC. A&M, real good week for the Aggies. So I got no issue there. I mean, you'll see where I had A&M, a little lower, but they won a big game at Missouri. St. John's, like the Red Storm in the top 10, beating Marquette at home, winning at UConn. Iowa State dropped significantly, and that's okay. Lost to Kansas, so they lost 3 in a row. Got healthy, beat TCU handily at home. Michigan State, after losing at UCLA, they come back and they knock off Oregon at home. Texas Tech, Arizona. Why not flip them? Arizona beat Texas Tech. It's not always a head-to-head, but when the head-to-head is last week and they're tied for first in the Big 12, then Arizona should be ahead of Texas Tech. Memphis at 14, continuing to win in the American. Kentucky at 15. I dropped Kentucky. You'll see where I put them. They did beat South Carolina, but Kentucky had a rough couple weeks. Wisconsin at 16. Badgers solid road win at Iowa. Kansas beat Iowa State and then lost at K-State. Marquette stays at 18. So what happened to Marquette this week? Marquette lost to UConn and lost to St. John's. Oh, I'm sorry. The UConn game was the week before. Marquette lost to St. John's. So where did I put them? You'll see here in a moment. Yeah. I mean, they're in a little bit of a mini slide right now. Ole Miss at 19. Fine with that. Michigan at 20. I saw them beat Oregon midweek. Missouri. Where Missouri? Missouri, I had to drop them because they lost 2 close games at Tennessee and at home to A&M. Mississippi State, again, they beat Georgia. Next couple of games are going to be tough. They're going to Florida. They get Florida, and then they got to go to their rival Ole Miss. Clemson checks in at 23. Tremendous home win over Duke, but that was on the heels of actually losing in multiple overtimes to Georgia Tech. Creighton continues to win, and Maryland. Glad Maryland stayed in the top 25. Maryland did lose a close one at the buzzer to Ohio State on a 3 by Bruce Thornton, but then bounced back on Sunday and beat Rutgers. So now, let's look what I did. Okay? I had Alabama 1, gave you my reasoning. I had Florida 2. I had Duke 3. I had Auburn 4. So I dropped Auburn from 1 to 4. Again, a home loss to, yes, a top 5 or 6 team, but was playing without one of its best players. Purdue 5, Tennessee 6, St. John's 7, Houston 8, Arizona and Texas Tech. Wasn't that hard? 9-10. Flip them. Should be Arizona at 12 if you're going to do it that way. Texas Tech at 13. I have Memphis 11, Michigan State 12, Iowa State 13, Maryland 14. Here's where it gets interesting. I have UCLA at 15. UCLA has won 7 in a row. One of the hottest teams, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. The Bruins should be ranked. They are not. They're 18-6, and they are omitted. UCLA should be in the top 25. I have Wisconsin 16. Team UCLA beat. I have New Mexico 17. The Lobos got the season sweep of Colorado State. They won at Air Force. They are 20-4. They are top of the Mountain West at 12-1 with a road win at Utah State the previous week, whom they play this week. Where are the Lobos? Where are they? 18 Creighton, 19 A&M, 20 Clemson, 21 Michigan, 22 Kansas, 23 Louisville. Cardinals are not in the poll. 24 UConn, which beat Marquette. 25 Nebraska. Nebraska's won 4 in a row and has had multiple quad one wins of late. 26 Illinois, 27 Missouri, 28 Ole Miss, 29 Vanderbilt, 30 Kentucky, 31 Mississippi State, 32 Marquette, 33 St. Mary's, which lost its first WCC game this time to San Francisco, 34 Utah State, 35 Kansas State. Now they're only 12-11. They've won 5 in a row, including beating Iowa State on the road and Kansas at home. 36 Drake, Bulldogs 22-2 already. Top the Missouri Valley, they've won 10 in a row. And at 37, 19-5, top the A10, George Mason. So, to recap, Auburn shouldn't be number 1 after losing to Florida at home without its best player, or one of its best players. Let me start again. Auburn should not be number 1. They lost at home to Florida. Florida was missing Elijah Martin. I had Auburn at 4. Number 2, Texas Tech and Arizona. Now, I had them at 9 and 10, Arizona, Texas Tech. AP 12-13. Flip them. The game was this past weekend, and Arizona won. That's mistake number 2. Number 3, where's UCLA? I have them at 15. They're nowhere to be seen. They've won 7 in a row. Number 4, where is New Mexico? I have them at 17. They're 20-4, 12-1 in the Mountain West Conference. And they are nowhere. Those are my biggest gripes in this week's AP Top 25. So let's get to our March Madness National Team of the Week, which, no surprise, was Florida. As I said, the Gators beat Vanderbilt by 11. That game was without Walter Clayton. Then they go to Auburn without Elijah Martin and beat the Tigers by 9. So you beat Vanderbilt without one starter. You beat Auburn without another. One at home and one on the road. Great week for the Gators, showing their depth. My March Madness National Player of the Week, R.J. Lewis Jr. from St. John's. So, St. John's beats Marquette. Yeah, that UConn loss was the previous week. So St. John's beats Marquette. And then they go on the road and beat UConn. Lewis started his career at UMass. Scored 17 in the win over Marquette. 21 at UConn, including a jumper with 11 seconds left. And then he hit a couple free throws. So he was instrumental in the final margin. Let's look at some top games of the week. starting the SEC. You have to. On Saturday, Auburn at Alabama. So let's decide on the court. 1 versus 2. Would have been 1 versus 4 in my poll, but whatever. First of the 2 games in Tuscaloosa. Game number 2, Houston at Arizona. Right now for first place in the Big 12. 2 schools that are not traditional Big 12 schools. Number 3, I will be there on Tuesday night. Tennessee at Kentucky. Kentucky needs another big-time win. Vols are playing great. They're healthier. Number 4, Purdue at Michigan. The Boilers' schedule gets really tough here. They're in first place in the Big 10, but the schedule's going to get tougher. Number 5, UCLA at Illinois. So the Bruins win 7 in a row, all on the West Coast. Now they go back to the Midwest. Illinois just won at Minnesota, looked really good. They're healthy. Number 6, Creighton at St. John's. St. John's has lost 1 Big East game, and it was at Creighton. Now this game is in New York. Number 7, second game of Utah State and New Mexico. First time in Logan. The Lobos won. Donovan Dent was sensational. Can the Aggies pull the upset off at the pit? Number 8, Auburn at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has already stormed and paid a hefty price when the Commodores beat Tennessee and Kentucky. Will they do it again if they beat Auburn? Florida, Mississippi State. So Florida now number 2. Now Florida, clearly, they're number 3, Florida number 3 at Mississippi State. The Bulldogs are just like a solid SEC team. This would be a good upset for them, whereas the Gators are trying to keep pace with Auburn and Alabama. Now, my last one here, Maryland at Nebraska. The Huskers have won 4 in a row. Bryce Williams is having an all Big Ten type season. This is going to be a huge game, great crowd. So that makes my list. Also, little bonus game here, Bradley at Drake. Drake already won at Bradley. 2 games up on the Braves in Northern Iowa. So they're going for a sweep in the Missouri Valley race. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, a little dry. All right, so let us get to some of your questions. How does Maryland drop so much? I guess they put a lot of thoughts into the buzzer beater by Bruce Thornton. Michigan State at Illinois, that's a rematch of a game that I thought was one of the best games of the Big Ten. That Michigan State won right at the end. Is that a joke? Where's Rutgers? I think it's a joke. Because the Scarlet Knights lost to Maryland on Sunday. I don't know who's going to guard Mark Sears in that game. Wisconsin at Purdue. I can't choose every game. But again, very difficult road game for the Badgers. The question of how is Texas Tech above Arizona? Again, I don't have the answer. It makes no sense. St. John's was snubbed, you could argue. Creighton snubbed, yes. Is Houston better than Tennessee? I think pretty close defensively. How many SEC wins does Arkansas need to make March Madness? Well, they're in a deep hole. Losing another home game like they did to Alabama didn't help. UCLA, we're all on the same page now. They're defending well. They're scoring. Riley and Adai Mara have made such a big difference inside to take pressure off of Bilodeau. So that's been a huge plus for UCLA. I think Texas A&M could be in the top 4 line seed. I love what Rick Pitino's done with the St. John's program. They play hard. They get after you. They're the best team in the Big East, and they could be a team that makes a very deep run. Prediction for Houston, Arizona. I'll go with the Wildcats in a late possession win. Yes, UConn finally dropped out. Why does the AP poll hate Maryland? I just think people aren't paying attention. Tennessee went 2-0 this week and dropped. Again, I think that was more of a Florida leaping because of the win at Auburn. You know, someone says Florida should be number one, and I would not have had a problem with that. So here's the problem. I want to address this. Someone's chiming in here saying that Auburn still has the best record, hardest strength of schedule, and they deserve number one. If you're talking about a number one seed, that is unequivocally correct. But a number one ranking is different. Number one ranking is what have you done lately? Rankings and seedings are different. And what did Auburn do lately? They lost at home to Florida without Elijah Martin. That's what they did. The Kentucky harder than Ole Miss, again, doesn't make sense. You know, the Cinderella team prediction, I think we really got to pay attention to Drake and really pay attention to George Mason. They're getting no love. And apparently New Mexico, because no one's paying attention to New Mexico. You know, these are all who should be higher. I agree with all these thoughts. So you're not. Where would I have had St. Mary's if they didn't lose this week? I would have kept them in the top 25. They lost to San Francisco. So all these things are true. I'm going to predict Alabama will win the game in Tuscaloosa. You know, I agree with all your thoughts about why are these different teams above certain teams. And all I can tell you is I just don't think people are paying attention. You know, a couple of weeks ago when Maryland beat Indiana, I thought, okay, well, they're for sure getting in the poll after that. That game was on CBS. Still, no one's paying attention. I don't get it. You know, Cincinnati back in the picture? No. Still deep in that bubble. So a reminder, by the way, on Tuesdays, we post our latest March Madness bracket. That will answer some of these questions because remember, this is more seeding, what you're asking me, than actually ranking. So that's critical. The other thing that I can remind everyone, this weekend, we will have our top 16 reveal for the men. So that'll give us an indicator of where things stand at this moment in time. Who would get the top 4 line seeds if the season ended Thursday or Friday of this week? We'll know that this weekend. And, you know, that sets us up for the final 4 weeks of the regular season. Sort of gives us a benchmark. And the percentages are pretty good that of those 16 teams, usually it's about 70 to 80% of them stay in the top 16 in some order. Northern Colorado has been consistently winning the Big Sky, so appreciate that shout out. You know, is Duke being penalized for a weak non-conference? You mean weak conference, not they have strong non-conference. Maybe they are. A mid-major team that will make a turn and run, I just rattle them off to you. You know, George Mason out of the A-10. I don't consider New Mexico mid-major. That's me. But if you want, Drake. You know, I think St. Mary's is drifting in the 6 to 7 range. That's where I think they will be seated. TCU's got a huge mountain. You know, they lost to Iowa State, which didn't help. I mean, they've made some progress, but I don't see it. So, as always, check out all our content here on Bleacher Report, NCAA.com, March Madness MBB. You can follow me at the Andy Katz on X, at the Real Andy Katz on Instagram. On Tuesday, we post our bracket. I I will be this week in Knoxville. Excuse me. Change the games. Got to know where I'm going. I will be in Lexington on Tuesday, weather permitting, for Tennessee at Kentucky. Wednesday, I'll be at Jersey Mike's at the Rack for Iowa at Rutgers. And then we'll have content throughout the course of the week. We have our series about Meet the Men's Basketball Selection Committee members. That's rolling out. So check that out. And so plenty to just keep you busy in the sport. So appreciate everyone. And we'll keep checking back. And I think we have about a month more of these every Monday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. So return again next Monday. Appreciate everyone. Thank you.